Today, I'd like to talk a little bit about the SkillWill matrix. So one of you sent this over to me and wanted to know how it overlays, and had some very interesting insights that you shared with me as you were looking at it. So I thought, well, I always like to check in with you guys to see, is there some other subject that you feel particularly pressed for us to discuss, an issue, anything like that, or do you want to jump into this subject? Yeah, so there you go. Like, well, for example, we were talking about the noise of the Air Force Base right now. It's also, if you think about it, it's a form of tension management. So, or there's definitely tension management involved. So it's affecting the citizens because of the noise that's involved. But it's in response to some other form of tension that's happening somewhere else on the planet. And the whole point of the circle of brilliance is for us to look at um, life at a bigger scale, to say, how do these principles of tension management give us greater insight, understanding, something like that? And what other models are out there that we go, well, now that's interesting. Now that we're thinking about whatever, this can be pretty interesting. All that being said, there's a gigantic pile of models that we have already accumulated over time. We found models faster than we could talk about them. And so I always like to pull one out of the file folder to say, all right, you want to do some merging of brilliance? You want to see where this fits, how this fits? We can do that as well. So any thoughts? Or shall I just jump in?
It's your
All right,
podcast.
there you go. Jumping is about to happen. All right. The question ended up being the SkillWill matrix. We have a couple of people inside of our professional team who are affiliated with Blanchard, certified to teach a lot of Blanchard programs and all that good sort of stuff. And so we end up talking quite a bit about Blanchard's work. Well, this SkillWill matrix that we've all kind of known about, I don't know how many of you know that it actually goes back to Hersey and Blanchard when they were first putting together situational leadership, a good time ago. They ended up talking a little bit about how you as a manager, you as the leader, were going to go about impacting people's movement from one readiness level to another. Now, what you're looking at on the screen right now, this situational leadership model is technically situational leadership 2, which was kind of a refinement that Ken Blanchard put together. There's a lot of reasons why it all happened. We've talked about them before. We shan't get into it again. But bottom line, these labels are different than you would find in situational leadership 1. So situational leadership 1 talked about the follower's readiness level, and you were going to be an R1, R2, R3, R4. Instead of development level, it was really all about how ready are you to do whatever it is the task at hand happens to be. Obviously, that language resonates far more readily with the change grade as we talk about it than this developmental sort of thing. In situational leadership 1, the 4 styles that you would use would be telling, selling, participating, and delegating. Well, when situational leadership 2 was put out there, they decided to change those labels. And instead of telling people, instead we were going to be directing them. Instead of selling people on all the whys and hows and benefits, etc., we were going to now be coaching. Now that they've continued to progress, their readiness level has gone up. They know for the most part what to do and how to do it. The old style was we were going to be participating with them, working with them. And this says instead we're going to be supporting them. And then ultimately, as they develop their little mastery, we were going to, in situation leadership 1, delegate to them. And in situation leadership 2, delegation is also what gets talked about. So whether it's telling, selling, participating, and delegating, or directing, coaching, supporting, and delegating, the same dynamic is still in play. I think this is really just packaging it perhaps more in a supportive sort of manner, if that was the goal, or maybe it was just to make it distinctive enough that it could pass muster as a revised or an updated version of Situational Leadership 1. All that said, I prefer the language of Situational Leadership 1, so that's the one that I tend to use most frequently. All right, so that's a quick review. Any thoughts about situational leadership?
Does that line show a natural progression, or is that what it's
Yes.
indicating?
Yeah, this is definitely showing a natural progression. And I think it's easier to understand the progression if we look at readiness rather than at leadership style. And so for
Mm,
readiness, let me just say that there are two kind of principles that are involved in someone's readiness. Soon you're going to see that it's about working with their skill and working with their will. So it's can they do it and do they want to do it? So maybe it's ability versus motivation. And so there's a different y-axis that we're used to looking at. Nevertheless, that y-axis is there. And so um, how I learned situational leadership, this was the scenario that I was provided. You are a brand new employee. You were hired well. You've got something to bring into the company. You're good. They need you. All that's certainly there. This is day one. You're brand new to the company. So we want to know at that moment in time, how would you rate your level of skill to do whatever it is that that job is going to entail you doing? Right? So they would say that you are at a readiness level of 1 because the truth is you don't know how that job is being performed here. It doesn't matter how many times you've done a similar job elsewhere. This is a new environment, perhaps with new objectives or purposes than they had before, and so you're still viewed as being a 1. A 1 is characterized by having a lower level of ability, but when it comes to their level of willingness, do you think their level of willingness or motivation is going to be high or low on day one?
Let's hope it's high.
Let's hope it's
yeah.
high. You're a brand new hire. You arrive and you kind of go like, look, I know my stuff, but I'm new here. And so, but I'm eager to learn what needs to be done and how you guys do things. That's the mindset of an R1. So what
Mm,
does an R1 really need? That readiness level needs someone to be directive. In situational leadership two, in one, it was telling. You need someone to tell you how it all works here, what's going on, who's who, what's where, what's you know what I mean. You need someone to just inform you, and it really isn't so much about working with your level of skill per se as much as it's working with just some of that core content sort of stuff that you may need to know. Okay, so does it
mm,
make sense that if you were at that particular level, and that's the right way for someone to be treating you? Yeah,
mm-hmm.
you okay with
Yeah.
it? All right. Now, what happens if that's the style that that person continues to use in their dealings with you for years and years and years to come?
Mm,
What if all
You
they
bore,
do,
bored
they,
to death.
yeah, exactly. All they're doing is they keep on telling you and telling you and telling you. Obviously, that's not going to help you develop. It may get you to the point where you get so frustrated, you say, I'm out of here. Or you retire in place, or what's the word? We were doing it during COVID. Anyway,
remote.
yeah, but it's where you're kind of, yeah, you're remoting yourself quite literally, but it's like you're still getting paid, but you really aren't in it anymore. You know what I mean?
Oh
There was,
yeah.
yeah, there was a
Yeah.
word we gave to that back,
I forgot. Yeah. Some
yeah.
kind of social loafing or something we
Yeah,
called it.
yeah, exactly. But whatever it was, that's what was going on. So the point of situational leadership is that regardless of which of these leadership styles is most natural or comfortable for you as a leader, it can only be applied in a given set of circumstances where it'll be maximally effective. Otherwise, it could be quite counterproductive. So
Mm,
similarly, there might be people, managers who are going like, well, we hired you because you were bright, just go do it. So they're delegating to someone who doesn't have the skill yet, doesn't have the awareness yet to go out there and do the job well. And so what do you think happens to, but they're motivated, right? Look, if someone says, welcome aboard, have at it. All right, you might be a little bit perplexed, but you're going like, well, obviously they see something really good in me. And so let me go do my thing. But what's the chances are that you got delegated to prematurely or you didn't get delegated to properly? What's the chances that someone's going to come back to you sooner or later and say to you, what the heck are you doing? That's
Yeah.
not how we do things here.
And you'll check out because
Well,
because
right,
now
but
that's
it's like,
almost the equivalent of a buyer's remorse kind of a thing.
right, because they're treating you as someone who has been fully developed in situational leadership too, when in fact you're still an S1, maybe ready to move on to a bit of an S2, or rather you're a D1 moving on to a D2 on the development level. What's happening as you move through here is that your level of ability, your level of skill, if you will, continues to go up. But that level of productive tension, as we would refer to it, begins to fluctuate. So, and we've talked about this before. I don't want to do this as a rehash of situational leadership. I just wanted to remind you this. You could say what ultimately you're working with is someone's ability to do something versus their motivation, their level of commitment to get something sort of done. So, whatever word you want to use to describe those two axes, that's what's going on in the world of skill versus will. It really, those are the words they're using. Skill parallels with ability and will parallels with the level of challenge that someone might be experiencing at that point in time. And so they basically said, and they came up with some really good things, just a second, that on the skill will matrix, what you want to do for someone who has low skill and low will is to provide them with direction, to which I say, that's wrong.
No.
Maybe it's true based on the way they've chosen to develop it, but I'm telling them what to do and how to do it. The problem with the diagram is their willingness is high at that time, not low. So, right, you're a brand new hire, you have low skill to do something. You don't come on and say, I don't know what to do and I don't want to do it. Well, how the heck did you get there? So when we bring in people that are low skill, we're trying to do something to meet the fact that they're very willing learners at that point in time. And so when I came across this diagram, I went, this diagram is wrong. And so I got to find the right one. Are you guys with me on why this one is wrong? It doesn't align with situational leadership, although somehow or another, both of these diagrams, the first one I showed you and the second one I showed you, are out of the exact same PDF file.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I have a problem with it. Now, I found this, whoever bite-sized learning is, I do not know, but this is the skill will matrix for line managers using situational leadership for different levels of skill and will. Now, it is this curve that is an important thing behind there. This movement of this arrow, it's telling us no, people are going to move from this point to this point to this point to this point. This maps perfectly to situational leadership. And it says, well, here's what you want to do. If you've got a beginner, that beginner is going to have very low skill, but they're going to be highly motivated. And so what do you want to do? Show them what to do, be hands-on, give constant feedback, stay available, focus on skills, etc. It's very directive behavior, but it's appropriate because their level of motivation is high. Now, what happens is that as someone's level of ability increases, as their level of skill increases, their level of motivation is going to drop. Now, soak in that for just a second. Why is it that someone who was very excited on day one and came in there ready to be a sponge, ready to learn, et cetera, as their skill goes up, their level of motivation predictably goes down? Why is that? Why does willingness suffer?
Because the mastery.
Yeah,
Because
they're going into the apathy down. They're going downgrade.
in our lingo, they're going down grid. They're
Mhm.
leaving power stress, maybe even some stress, because again, it's day one. Their level of ability is going up, and now something is happening to their willingness, to their commitment was the word from situational leadership one. And so what's that really all about? Well, let me give you guys some kind of samples of this. And again, it's whenever I've taught situational leadership, this is what I put out there. You know, day one, you were really excited because you know you came in there as a talented individual. You were hired, you were a good hire. And so you come in there with everything you know, but you also come in with some expectations. Those
Mhm.
expectations might have been things you brought along with you, or it might have been stuff that people gave you to bring along with you. So maybe during your interview process, you were told that certain things were going to be true. And as you start to learn what's really going on, you realize that the fantasy you had going into it does not match the reality of the situation. Now, it may in large part do that, but you're just starting to notice there's some little scratches in the surface. There's some little disconnects that are going on. And so now you start to wonder, is this what I thought I was getting myself into? Is this, am I really right for this job? Is this job turns out to be less than what I'm ready to do? Is it more than what I'm ready to do? Is there a disconnect there? I was told there was going to be certain levels of autonomy and responsibility and work styles, and some of that stuff isn't matching. Can you kind of feel that after someone has been in a new position for a couple of weeks or a couple of months, these kinds of thoughts are going to start occur? Daniel, your hand is up. So, yeah, you can just go ahead and unmute yourself and there. Yeah.
Sure. I just share an experience. I learned this when I was a young Marine because other Marines didn't want to be promoted.
Right.
They didn't find the Marine Corps tough enough, didn't meet their expectations.
Yep. Yep.
So
And that's what
we
ends up.
made them PT every morning, and then they loved it.
Right. Yep. And so I think they know because of the sheer volume of people they're moving through that system that some people are going to naturally thrive in that environment. Some people are going to figure out a way to make it work. In fact, I would imagine the majority figure out a way to make it work. And some figure that it's just, they're so unsuited for this that they need to pursue ways of perhaps changing that relationship. And, when we're not in the time of war, I believe that enlisted people who went ahead and made their commitment, if it's not working for them, I know that there are ways for them to get out of that contract. It happened to my own brother. My own brother was ultimately honorably discharged, but he was discharged because they just said he is never going to adjust to this. He's never going to adjust, and so they let him on his way. So anyway, my point is that this is something that's really happening, and it's also happening when we get to situational leadership. Some people that find themselves in a new job are going to thrive more readily than other people are going to thrive. The
Mhm.
environment has stayed the same. The difference is what they brought into that and what did they bring with them in terms of skills and expectations. Okay. And so anyway, the point is that if we can predict that people's level of motivation is going to start to drop, I need to change the way that I'm working with this person because I have increased their skill. Skill has gone up, but the will is suffering. And so what can I do? Now, in the days of situation leadership one, it would have said that what you want to do is sell. Now they're saying coach. Selling was really all about acknowledging the fact, maybe directly, that you get that there's a difference between what you were expecting and where you're at. But we, the company, see in you so much knowledge and experience and all that you can take the company places we can't even imagine. And so if we're not matching, we got to find ways for you to be the one that's really, here and taking the reins, et cetera. You see, ultimately, I want to move them from being sold on staying with it to being able to participate with them as they start to modify that job or enhance that role or whatever, so they can become even more effective in what they were actually doing. Get the idea? So I got to sell you first. I got to acknowledge this, but I need to talk to you about the benefits of staying with it, the advantages, the opportunities, where the gaps are and how you can fill them. Can you feel that that's a very different style than what we would do for someone who was highly motivated and less skilled?
Yes.
Right.
It seems like the missed opportunity for a lot of organizations is in the very beginning.
Oh, yeah,
You know, in
right.
that direct phase, right? Like it's not done intentionally. It's done almost like this one size fit all. And so people can't transition or don't transition to that next phase in the most elegant way. And I hear this all the time, like when people say, "What was your orientation like?" "Oh, we, read a vision, mission statement, looked at videos, and then they're thrown out into the trenches."
Yeah,
Well,
right.
that's
And
not going to
so,
cut it.
and again, what you're describing is what Blanchard and Hersey's work was really all about. The fact that everyone, or how about this, the vast majority of people who work their way up to being a manager, to being a director, to being an executive, to being a business owner, have no education whatsoever in business.
Mm,
They just are, they're getting promoted. They're figuring it out as they go along. The vast majority of people, that's how they advance. And so basically, they just find a style that works for them, matches their personality, or they duplicate the style of the manager that they had. And Blanchard is just saying, look, there's four different styles of leadership, and each one of them can be profoundly beneficial if you put it into the right place, the right time, with the right people. But if you're going to be rigid with one, you're going to have problems.
hmm
Now, to your point, and talking about the military is exceptional when it comes to training people, providing consistent training, et cetera, talking about treating people that are highly motivated, not particularly skilled. They're really, really good at this directing. And you got to believe that there's going to be some people that are going to show themselves as being stars in that environment, that they just
hmm
thrive. The military they were made for the military, and the military life is made for them. Well,
Yeah.
these are the people that I'm going to be promoting, right? Because I'm seeing that potential. I might be doing basic training, but I'm looking for potential. I'm looking for who the leaders are going to be, because later on in basic training, we're going to start doing exercises where I need to say, you need to be the leader, you need to be the leader. And, you get the idea. I may
Right.
very well start to coach those people a little more, a little privately. Or it may very well be that their next level of training after they're out of basic is really more focused on this sort of thing.
Right.
They're
And
moving,
but see, that's intentional though, and
yeah,
whereas
structure.
corporations don't seem to do it because I remember, and Daniel probably can speak to this, but I remember meeting a military officer, and he talked about how they detrain people. He literally used that term. We
Yeah,
detrain people on what it means to be a civilian because now you have to think from a military perspective, and that's probably why when they come out of the service they need to be trained again. They're still speaking military terms like CO. And I'm like, what does that mean? Well, that's commanding officer. Well,
yep,
if someone doesn't have military experience, they're not going to know what your CO is. So
mhm,
you have to retrain them when they come out.
yep, that's right.
You know, if you take a sapling and you bend it, um, when it grows to be the tree, you'll
Yep,
never get that bend out.
nope, 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 nope. It's absolutely true. It's absolutely true.
Just
So,
to get a quick note on what you said, T.
yep,
When I personally went to boot camp, they handed me all the record books and told me I was responsible for the record books and the personnel deliver them to boot camp.
there you go.
Mhm.
3 days later, I was made guide of my platoon.
Yeah, right. They're looking for the potential And then, then they're going to go like, all right, this one's worth going to that next level of development. Where the rest, if you're just going to be an enlisted person and you're there because you signed the agreement because you needed to or whatever, fine. You can very well serve your role. Thank you very much for your service. But there's always going to be some percentage of those individuals who are going to be better suited and are going to resonate with the work. And that's how you end up with some career people. That's where no one becomes a multi-star general because they were poorly suited for the military.
Right.
It just doesn't happen. So,
One commandant that I met a few years ago told me that he was surfing before he went in the Marine Corps. So,
yeah, 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 yeah. So it's good. All right. So again, just to finish this, because I want to move this on to the change where you guys can see what's going on here. At a certain point in time, all this selling behavior or coaching behavior, suggesting what they could try, ask them questions, empower, encourage, build confidence. There's a lot of other things, but you get the idea. I'm really trying to get that. At a certain point in time, as their educator, I'm working on their skill, if you will. I need to say to them, I've probably taught you the vast majority of stuff there is to teach you about doing your job here. Now it's time for you to teach us. So, what is it? Now you know who we are and how we do things. You tell us how all of your skills, all of your experience, all of your whatever, how would you go about improving all this? And look at what they're using the word support. We would have used the word participate in situational leadership one. You believe that they can do it. You develop the motivation, you raise their stakes, but this is what's really going on is we're doing. I think this actually sounds more like coaching than supporting. I mean, I'm working with finding your internal motivation. I'm working with upgrade maneuvers. So I don't think this is particularly supportive. When I think of support, I think of someone saying to me, well, if you need anything, let me know. Or here's a whole bunch of resources that you can tap into, and here's who the person in charge and the authority. So here's your resource list. Let me know if you have any trouble. If you want to run an idea by me, I'm here to listen to what you have to say. You know what I'm saying? So I'm a little. There is a reason why I favor situational leadership one lingo. If I haven't said that enough times.
I really agree with you, T, on that. That makes perfect sense there. It's like let them go, and know that that you're there. Yeah.
Right. I'm still watching because I understand skill is still being developed but now maybe what I'm saying is that we need to allow them the opportunity to bring their knowledge, their wisdom, their experience into our operation to improve upon it if possible, do it more efficiently, etc. I suspect they might be getting some pushback from people. And so, I can kind of feel like my role there is to be observant, but keep a little bit of a distance from them and, check in with them frequently, remind them that I'm always here, ask them some really good questions to what's going on. So, if anything, I almost would want to switch this duty list here, these bullet points, with this one. I almost want to switch the bullets around. But
The
nevertheless,
support sounds like mentoring.
well, this is it. But mentoring to me um, is an activity that is more engaged than supporting.
Hmm.
A mentor is doing something, mentoring, where supporting means I'm more of in a waiting kind of a position, happy to be of service, ready to be of service, but I need them to seek me out more than
Hmm.
impose it on them. So we have all these words in English for a reason, and unfortunately, a lot of times people have used words that don't really match what they were going for, or maybe we're missing their whole point of this distinction. Don't know what to tell you.
support generally means to hold something up,
Yeah.
and supporting apprentices. I'm just, thinking my first job out of the Marine Corps was as an international representative for Texas Instruments.
Yep.
I was nowhere near where anybody could monitor me.
Yeah.
I was often on the other side of the world,
Yeah.
and support was exactly what I needed. And
Right.
all those things really ring true to me. So
Yeah.
I'm listening.
Yep, yep, yep. And see, and again, we believe, or situational leadership believes, that if we do a good job of this style, we are supporting that person, I'll use that word, to become a real R4, readiness level 4, developmental level 4. This is someone who has basically mastered the task. They have very high level of skill and their motivation has returned because now they're running their own show. Now they've really achieved something and we need to help them keep that level of excellence. But I'm delegating to them pretty much. They're my peer now, if anything. And that's the progression. That's the route that we end up taking people on. Now, I have no argument with the concept in general. Yes, I had issues with this particular diagram, but I like the little progression because it's not a jump around. It's not a you're this or you're this. We got to do these things in a particular sequence if we'd like to really develop a person to being the best they can be. But I think there's another thing we need to do is with this matrix, and that is answer the question: how does this actually overlay on the change grid? Well,
Mhm.
if we look at the scale of the skill axis certainly overlays effortlessly on the ability scale, but ability is more robust than simply skill. Ability includes knowledge, skill, and experience, and sometimes the availability of certain core resources can affect your ability. Although someone corrected me long ago, one of the things I've learned countless things from students, but one of the things that I learned was they said the total lack of a required resource does not affect ability, it affects possibility. And
Mhm.
I thought that's a very important distinction that I think is worth pursuing. But nevertheless, I can't do it. I don't have the resources. I'm going to say I can't do it. So I think skill is only taking, you only have one eye open and maybe not even a whole eye when you're looking at what really is involved in that. But fine, they want to call it skill, they can call it skill. Um, and they're saying skill ranges from low up to high, but I don't think they're saying that skill in their model ranges from nothing to absolute and total mastery. When we're talking about leadership, we're accepting the fact that people are coming into the organization with a lot of knowledge and skill and experience that they've gathered
Mhm.
up to now that made them employable. And we're going to hope that when they're done up here, they're going to continue to learn and grow and develop, but it's way beyond what we need them to be doing as far as that job. Maybe it means they can go on to another job, another company, another whatever, but we understand that we're not starting from zero and we're not ending up at 12. Can you guys
Right.
wrap your head around that? Well, they're starting. And so I would say to you that while we are looking at the change grid, the model inherently does not really look at extremely low levels of ability or extremely high levels of ability. They're looking at a certain range of competency that makes you appropriate for a particular task. So maybe that organization was happy to find someone who had an ability of an 8 or a 9, or boy, if we could find ourselves a 10, but a 12, not only might we not be able to find them, we might not want them because they could be very rigid if
Mhm.
you know what I'm saying. So I think we really are looking for a wide range, but nevertheless a narrower range than the range of possibilities that exists on the change grid.
I was just thinking too, according to that model where they had the mastery um, as high skill, high motivation, but looking at that on the change grid, that would not necessarily fit as well, right? Because the mastery down grid isn't necessarily high motivation.
Well, right. But the difference is when we overlay situational leadership on in the world of tension management, it actually fits into the master stream and it's a deeper dive into what
Ah,
happens during phase 3 and phase 4, or when the solution is being presented and the commitment is happening. So
got it.
technically, that's where it would show itself most readily. However, we can overlay it on the change grid, but to overlay it on the change grid, it's going to end up becoming circular, not just a U-shaped movement. And
Okay.
T, I have a question for you because I, I'm sure, I did a lot of work with situational leadership way back when, but, and I think about the change grid and how it impacts the whole, one of the characteristics of situational leadership was the ability, has been and is the ability to move back and forth
yes,
among those styles
that's right.
in order to address, skill and ability, performance,
That's
essentially.
right.
Performance.
That's right.
And so to me, what that means is, to the connection to the change grid is that you're constantly monitoring the level of tension and moving in either creating greater tension or lessening or trying to move somebody down grid or up grid in order to move them to that next level of situational leadership. I wouldn't say that's the end. I mean, we're trying to get them into power and into results, but those two goals are the same, and that's what you're doing. You're managing tension with that situational leadership model.
Well, and in fact,
Mm,
you guys have heard me say that to me, that the thing about the change grid is that we're not looking at the person, we're looking at the situation. And so
mhm.
I'd already had that thought. Then I stumbled across situational leadership and I went like, well, this is going, I guarantee you, if they're actually looking at things at the situational level, this is going to fit very nicely. And it did.
Mhm.
So yeah, you're absolutely right. It's situational leader. And that means, by the way, that on any given day, the leader has to be able to move from one style to the next with inside of one interaction with one person or multiple interactions with the same person or multiple people. You got to be able to fluidly go from one style to the next as you are in our lingo, determining where they are on the change grid and where you're trying to move them to. All right.
Interesting. Were you
So,
using the journal when you were teaching this? Were you using
no, well,
pencil
interesting.
journal?
I personally don't talk about journaling per se very often. And I know the reason for it is because I'm not personally a journalist. I don't write
Got
stuff
it.
down. But I would say to you that the act of journaling or the benefits of journaling would fit in very nicely here. It's
Hmm.
just not something I personally do.
You know what I was thinking about? Why I asked that question, as Kathy was just brilliantly articulating this managing of the tension. Think about how companies always wait till like the end of the year to do these performance reviews and those kinds of things.
Yeah,
And people don't have relevant data
yep,
along a continuum to actually shift their behavior to where it needs to be. So it
yep,
seems like the tension management perspective will help them, but they're going to have to, or I think it'd be ideal to track it
yeah.
regularly
Well, and
so
I
that
think
you
that
have that.
doing things like annual evaluations, I think are on the borderline of worthless
Exactly.
because it tends to be whatever the person who is evaluating can remember or whatever came up stuck out. And so I just question the validity of it altogether. But I would say to
Exactly.
you that whatever performance appraisals they're coming up with is more a reflection on the company's performance overall than it is on any of the individuals inside of the company.
Hmm.
Oh, because it's right. You got someone who's deep down in apathy and you haven't done anything about it because they've always been deep down in apathy. I don't think the issue is that person. So
Mm.
you want to punish them because they're down in apathy? Why do we punish the people who did whatever they did or didn't do what they needed to do? And as a result, this person's down in apathy.
Right.
So yeah, I get the idea. So I've never been a big one there. Nevertheless, it's still big business. Now
It
let me
is.
let me get this next little dimension on here so you guys understand how it is that we could overlay will or motivation on what's going on. So when we think of challenge, that's how we label this, the level of perceived challenge or difficulty that someone is experiencing. I would just start by throwing a question to you guys. Um, at what levels of challenge do you think you are likely to see motivation happen and fall off? So, at what level of challenge do you think motivation might actually exist? The willingness to do something. Can you guys, give me a scale, give me a whatever.
Are you looking at a number on the change grid, or
Yeah,
are
anywhere
you
along this whole challenge thing. What numbers do you think would be motivating, and which numbers would you say you'd predict motivation?
anything above 6, I
Say,
think?
yeah, I was gonna say the same thing.
Yep, so
I would
6,
guess
7, 8.
anything above 3.
10?
Yeah, I'm willing to do it down here. I might be a bit more excited up here, but I'm still, that willingness is still happening here. But if the level of challenge is a 10, 11, or 12, are you guys really motivated and energized and willing and excited, or what?
You're overwhelmed.
You're kind of like, that sounds scary. I don't, I'm not willing because I'm not stupid,
Mhm.
Unless you're a high-risk personality.
And maybe, in which case you'd be doing a 10, maybe even an 11. I do hope you pause for a moment before doing a 12. You know?
Right.
We got at 9.
Yeah, right. So, but anywhere around here. And I would say that if the perceived level of challenge of doing something is super low, 0, 1, 2, what's the chances of you going like, oh yeah, let's go do that?
No.
I'm willing to do it. Like, for example, something that's very low challenge is something like eating lunch. Okay, well, I'm willing to do it, but not necessarily going to be excited about it. Now, if we're going to do something while we're having lunch, so be with friends and have conversation, now I'm going to be more motivated because there's a little more challenge. We have to interpret challenge as being something that's more thoughtful, more unpredictable, something like that. So who knows? I want to go catch up with friends. Who knows what they've been up to, blah, blah, blah. So
Mhm.
the challenge is still there, although it doesn't have a negative cloud hanging over the challenge. My point is that I could say that I could map motivation here, but motivation to me is really more of a result of where you end up on the change grid than it is. But nevertheless, I can make it work, and we have to do this sometimes when we're doing the merging of brilliance. What
How
that
would you defining challenge? You were defining it as the hunches, intuition, and there was something else, wasn't there?
are we talking about the red step of things?
No, how you coined the challenge, just like abilities, knowledge, skills, and experience. I remember when I was first doing the training, you talked about challenge like
Yeah,
hunches,
challenges all
intuition.
the stuff that is why can I always forget this word? The opposite of concrete. Abstract. And so
Abstract.
it's more
Okay.
abstract stuff. And so when we talk about someone's level of willingness, their level of motivation, their level of confidence, their level of hunger, their level of narcissism, their level of whatever, this is something that's all happening inside of your head. So
Got it.
it's not something that I can count, I can measure. Everything on the ability scale is concrete, measurable, testable, provable, whatever the case may be. But when it comes to stuff that's giving rise to your perception of challenge, this is all the other stuff that's going on. And it's a different experience. That's why we're saying, like, everyone may experience hunger, but I don't necessarily believe that my experience of hunger matches someone else's understanding of hunger. In fact, I would be willing to say to almost everybody living in any country, civilized country out there, do we even know what real hunger feels like?
Right.
No, have any of
Exactly.
us actually ever truly been hungry? So to me, it is a unique experience to the individual who's having it right there.
Hmm.
We call it
Okay, so yeah, that's what we're going there for. Hunches and instincts and intuition is all about the stuff that's in the commitment step of the path of self-discovery, or the red step. So it's still all
Okay.
internal processes, but it's different than we're talking about for the definition of perceived challenge. Okay, anywho, what I wanted to bring to your attention then is based on what we've just said, situational leadership, we'd be confined to a moderately ranged level of
Mhm.
perceived ability. So let's just say from 3 up to 9. And similarly, situational leadership would be confined to situations where perceived challenge would be, say, a 3 up to a 9. I'm okay with 10 and 2. There's nothing really etched in stone here. You just get the vibe I'm going
Mhm.
for. So situational leadership is something that's going to exist inside of these 4 sub quadrants. Or it's really about the green circle and a little bit of a wedge, top right down, this little bit out here. So that's what I'm doing. I'm saying this is where it overlays. Maybe I say that in a fully functional individual who is being truly properly managed under using situational leadership, doing it really skilled, I'll bet the whole thing's happening inside the green circle. Yeah. And as we
Interesting.
work our way around it, they get stronger and stronger. And so they're building and building and building, but they're never being pulled through any of these super extreme danger zones. You guys with me on this?
Interesting.
Yeah, so let me,
Say that again, T, please.
yeah, I'm saying that if someone is being as developed as well as they could be developed, we would say if we can make that happen inside the green circle, we're experts at what we're doing. Because why should my employee ever experience stress?
Right.
Why should they feel it? Why would I need them, if you will, to show themselves as being this far out grid? Uh,
Right.
why would I bore them for so long by telling them everything that they end up being driven down into apathy? You know, this is if you've got employees that are too far up, out, down, or in grid, this is a reflection on you as a developmental force in their lives. So,
Mhm.
so I would say to you, well, where does the person need to be told? It's where their commitment is higher, their motivation is higher, but their perceived ability is lower. That's this block right here.
Mhm.
So think about what this block is. You are we'll just keep it simple, an analytical expressive. So that's what you're feeling, the expressive energy. There's some stimulation going on here. It might not be excitement. We might need to be further upgrade, but intellectually, you're finding the situation stimulating. But there's a puzzle that's happening. You know what you know, and you know what you're learning and observing, but you're missing key elements of those skills, those insights, etc. So,
Mhm.
this is what should be happening here. And as I see that you're learning these key insights, I know that you're going to be moving a downgrade, but the change grid would say not only are you moving your commitment going down, it's this feeling that you're being held back. You want to move forward. You want to do something. You don't want to keep going through basic training, basic training, basic training. So you need someone who recognizes that there's part of you who wants to get out there and do the job, get out there and run the field, get out there and really do it. And so this is now you moving out grid, if you will, and I need to be here in situational leadership terms to coach you. And
Mhm.
coaching is an outgrid maneuver. And so I'm here to make sure I'm helping you refine, see what's going on. At the same time, using situational leadership too, I'm selling you. I'm helping you believe in yourself and believe that what you want to do and the fact that you want to do it here is realistic. It's something that we'd love for it to happen. We need you to make it happen. Remember that in the outgrid maneuvers, one of them is that I need to, through my leadership, help you find the leader within yourself. The purpose of leadership is to create more leaders. And so this is what's really going on out here.
That's
Now,
amiable driver.
this would be the amiable driver because it's coming from this place of care. I'm caring enough about my company to say you're an asset we want to develop. And I'm
Mhm.
also saying to you as the asset, we care enough about you to make sure that your intrinsic motivators can be satisfied here, right?
Mhm.
So this is what I'm trying to do. Now, as I do that, people are going to say, yeah, but isn't my motivation lowering now? Well, it might be going down, but I can still be inside the green circle. Inside the green circle, I may now have had my ability has gone up because now I'm doing more of my own thing. And now I'm figuring out my own systems. I'm putting structure and order and organization. I'm implementing me inside of this organizational kind of setting. And so don't think that that's apathy. I'm not in apathy. I'm not even in power apathy, maybe. I could simply be in power, but it's lower power. It's more about feeling ready to do it, understanding it, etc. But I'm not down here in apathy. Could you guys feel what this little wedge of pie might be
Mhm.
like? Yep.
Yeah. In fact, I think the motivation, like having just enough is key because if we have too much, we always talk about carrying detachment in the
Yep.
center, right?
This
So
is
if you
what it's
have
all
too
about.
much, then you're going to be attached to an expectation or a certain outcome
That's
that
right.
may not be what you're actually
That's
producing,
right.
or even what you need to learn from.
Right.
And so
And so
that can be
again,
a challenge.
you guys were talking about that situational leadership practices are happening all the time. We need them to happen earlier. I need them to happen while a person is still inside their green circle. Because if I
Mhm.
wait until they're way between the green and the red circle, God forbid they end up in a danger zone, this is a very different job. I waited too long to do it. Now I'm going to tell too much for too long. An intervention is going to have to come into play. We're going to have to mobilize resources, blah, blah, blah. You get the idea? Because I
Mhm.
didn't lead at the greatest moment of opportunity, I'm going to have to lead under less desirable circumstances. And that's going to hold true all the way going around here. If I encourage them to be too far out grid, where they're going to be doing things too relentless on the outcome, are they ever going to figure out what their system was? Are they ever going to formalize their understanding into something we might be able to leverage for themselves and others?
No, I
And
don't
now
think they
here,
care out there.
now, ultimately, we can delegate to them. And this is going to sound strange because the moment we delegate to somebody, we actually are recognizing them as being a driven, amiable. They're a peer now, and they're here to do something about it. But what they're going to do, if they're the ones we want to do, is they're going to shift this whole circle complex, this whole PowerPoint and green circle. They're going to start shifting it further and further out grid. Now, that doesn't change the diagram because what they're really doing is redefining what this inside of the green circle experience looks and sounds and feels like to them. You with me?
Mhm.
So we're constantly redefining what our center is, but we're doing it by going a little upgrade, then a little outgrid, a little downgrade, get it all formalized, and then we let go. The world keeps changing. If we pay attention to, we go like, new opportunity, time to step up. Let's solve this problem. Let's work our way around it. Situational leadership was never presented as a one-way trip that you do one time with somebody. It is something that's going to be done over and over and over again. And as Kathy pointed out, you might need to slip back a little bit. Sometimes you miss your
Mhm.
bus. we gotta, we gotta, re-examine our trip so far and how we're doing it. All right.
I
So
love this.
Truly, truly from a frequency standpoint, it's about embedding in the current wave.
Mhm.
exactly. Exactly. And the
Mhm.
more that we stay inside of the green circle, keep in mind, the easier it is for us to move up the spiral dynamic, and probably the quicker that movement is going to happen because we're not introducing the challenges of being between the green and the circle, the chaos, the real distraction, maybe derailment, because all of the things that we do between the green and the red circle take their toll, cost a price energetically, if nothing else. And so, to whatever degree we possibly can, we really like to say the best life is lived inside of the green circle. And why doesn't that extend to any sort of a developmental opportunity, whether you are raising a child or whether you are running a boot camp? Is there some reason why I need to wait to educate a child until they're up in stress?
Right.
Why can't I use every moment as that? Let's solve a puzzle. Let's see what's missing here. Now, let me tell you, you could do this. This is something you could do. Now, how are you going to put it all together? I'm here to help you. And then, I'm working them around and around. Why do we end up spending so much of time and energy between the green circle and the red circle? And by the way, why is the biggest business for all of us that are in the professional side of the human development industry? Why is it that our bread and butter tends to be danger zones?
Mm-hmm.
We get called in because there's some super stressful situation that's going on. They need intervention. If we can get called into a developmental experience, back in the day when they would bring in a sales training program or developmental program as a way of celebrating the success of the team, that was big business for us because it happened. I don't know if the laws have changed, but back then, if you as a corporation wanted to make an awards banquet or an awards weekend trip fully tax deductible, there had to be an educational component to it. There had to be something that was going to enhance the value of your business. So someone better stand up and deliver a keynote presentation that's going to motivate everybody you just spent millions of dollars on to be at this event, to go out there and make millions of dollars plus to what's going on. And so we had a niche there. Don't know if that niche is still around or.
So T, was this I obviously heard of situational leadership, but I don't think I ever I wasn't trained in it. But was it a training series or was it a book training
It's all
series?
those things. It's actually Blanchard Enterprise. It's a huge training organization out of Escondido, California. Hersey, I think he's still in business, although both these gentlemen could have retired, a decade ago or longer, and maybe they're all at the age where they are retiring. But nevertheless, they've built enterprises that continue to market their work, present their work. In fact, I think it's Chris Gloss is one of our ChangeWorks professional who's also is a Blanchard professional. So he can tell you all about that. They're always calling him and saying, can you go and deliver this particular program? So it does exist as a curriculum. They all exist as books. This was also a subject that was taught at the university level. This goes back to Hersey, but Hersey and Blanchard were very active professors at some of those schools down in Southern California, at least, maybe more. And so, they were delivering this to an academic audience as well.
What I like about this is it's not a trend. You know what I mean? Because like a lot of times the leadership stuff is all about what.
Yeah, but Brian, you may not know about this, but in the world of human resource development, not just HR per se, but anything in the world of training, et cetera, there is a Hall of Fame. And inside of that Hall of Fame, there are certain models that have earned a place in that Resource Development Hall of Fame or HR Hall of Fame. And I am positive that situational leadership is among the ones that are in such Hall of Fame.
Interesting.
What's that?
Wow.
It's because it was simple.
It's because it was simple. Blanchard actually is the one who perfected the super short book. If you look at any of the books that come out of Blanchard Training and Development, these are all things that would be an easy read on a 2-hour flight, coast to coast. You could read the whole book, finish the whole.
The 1 Minute Manager.
Yeah, exactly. Right? The 1 Minute Manager. The 1 Minute Manager gets fit.
Oh yeah, I read that book. So that's okay.
Yeah. And often they're co-authored by someone else because Blanchard started his business with a thought that others would continue it after he's long gone. And so you will see that for every one of those books, while his name is there, there's going to be another author's name on there, and it's one of his cadre of professionals that he's worked with over all these years.
The trend is over the licensing.
Yeah. Yep.
Wow.
So anyway, it's really good stuff. It does overlay on the change grid, but we think more practically it overlays on the master stream itself. And we can talk about that on a different day, but it's because as you move someone from R2 or from being this R1 readiness level to R2 and R3, if you're not careful, this whole thing can happen down in apathy because you let it go on too long and drop down too far. And so instead of having a nice little circle movement, you've got this weird shape, elliptical, egg-shaped problem that occurs on this malformed blob, So you can definitely see that there is great skill involved in doing it well, but it's the same skills we talk about when we talk about tension management in general. All right, anyway, so last comment, just wanted to show you, yes, it overlays, and it overlays confined inside of these 4 sub-quadrants, maybe even inside the green circle. Questions, comments?
Love it.
The only comment I have is that that's assuming that the supervisor is clear about all that.
Absolutely.
And,
So, because
and-
if they're not,
And that ain't always going to happen.
no, more often than not, it's not going to happen. We're going to have managers that are highly autocratic, in which case they're going to tell for too long and never stop telling. That's going to have an effect on the team altogether. Or they're going to be people who delegate prematurely. And in fact, in Blanchard's book, one of the things they talk about is a leave alone zap. When you delegate prematurely, sooner or later that person is going to get zapped because they weren't delegated to properly. So they're doing something differently than the powers that be suddenly decide to pay attention to. So they zap you. And so, so it all gets explained in terms of tension management. But Kathy's absolutely right. Most organizations are not operating inside the green circle.
Yeah.
Interesting.
The other thing is that I'll say when I've attended SHRM or OD conferences, if Blanchard's there, there is standing room or sitting on the floor only.
That's right. That's right.
He's like the father of OD.
He is. And so everything that man has enjoyed in his life, he deserves every single bit of it. Every single bit of it.
Incredible.
That being said, what we do is we say that model is great. We want to integrate it into a much bigger model. To Daniel's point, Blanchard said, let's keep it simple, keep it simple, keep it simple. And that's a fantastic model when it comes to doing corporate training and development. Because how often do you really get multiple days with an audience to train them in something? You don't.
Right.
You get an hour, you get a half day, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Once in a while, a full day, So, okay. All right, so that's it for now. If you guys have any further questions about the SkillWill matrix, happy to talk about it, but I wanted to show you how that one overlays.
Thanks, T. I'll be away next week, so continue all to be brilliant.
All righty, we shall miss you. All right, thanks everybody. Okay, bye for now.
Thank you. Cheers.